This time on Anime the Recap. The show begins with a woman carrying a baby and running away from the guys chasing her. Seeing her getting drenched in rain, a woman opens the door of her house for her to come in, but she hands her the baby, saying that she has to run to the pharmacy and will be back in a while. This baby was wearing a walnut-like necklace. 18 years later, the baby has turned into a good-looking teenager named Lu Shu, who lives with his sister Liu Yixiao. During the festival, they come across a person with a special fire ability which piques their interest. To know more, they sneak in the backstage, where they witness the fire guy being shot with a dart by men in black coat. Recently, many superpower awakenings were being witnessed around the world, and the men in black were most probably gathering people with superpowers. Liu Yixiao has been with Lu Shu since his days in orphanage, and she was saddened when Lu Shu escaped the orphanage. As a result, she too escapes a bit later, and Lu Shu rents out a small house near his Aunt Lin's house, the woman whom his mother handed him and never returned. While going to the supermarket, Lu Shu is struck by the one and only truck gun. As he was bleeding to death, the walnut necklace emits a ray of light, and Lu Shu's superpower is awakened. Not only does he survive, but there is not a single scratch on him. As he rushes back home, he witnesses random numbers popping above people's head who he gets in contact with. These numbers were negative emotions which become his income, and he can buy stuff from this income through a status panel, only visible to him. He obtains a page with a poem on it that takes him to some other dimension where he would gain power. In the market near his house, a fire breaks out, and as he tries to go to the scene, he comes across the same men in black from before. He was still at his roof, so the men in black did not suspect him. Afterwards, a man falls down in front of their house. It's the same fire guy pretending to be unconscious, and when Lu Shu declines to help him, he gets annoyed and tries to use his superpower on him. But Lu Shu's newly acquired superpower canceled the fire effect, and he remains unharmed. Lu Shu buys a celestial fruit, which gives him the power from 1 out of 7 orbits around his power's core. To consume another celestial fruit, he needs more points, hence he starts to mock everyone, especially his classmates. Next day, after selling eggs before school, a student from his school gains superpower and tries to kill a teacher by throwing him off the roof. Luckily, the cleverness of Lu Shu saved the teacher, and that student was taken into custody. Later, the blood samples of Lu Shu and his class are taken to check for superpowers. The next day, students who were awakened were announced. The one who announced was the same man in black which Lu Shu came across twice before. Among the students were Cao Qingci, the strongest girl among the students, Liu Li, who always tries to mock Lu Shu, but our protagonist always doubles it and gives it back, and lastly, Lu Shu. These students would attend the Daoyuan class, where they would be taught to upgrade their superpowers. A test was conducted to determine the superpowers, which are from A to F, with it being the highest level, and shows the darkest shade of black in the test. Lu Shu's result showed the lightest shade, so he was just an F grade. At home, Lu Shu gets a new stinky tofu and another page from the shop, and this page awakens Liu Yixiao. The next day, instead of eggs, Lu Shu starts to sell stinky tofu, and within a few days, he gets enough money for another celestial fruit. With this fruit, he unlocks a nebula around his soul core and gains a sword that is stored in his body and can be fully controlled. Such a weapon can only be possessed by someone with a C-grade superpower or above. Lu Shu's neighbor, Mr. Li Sr., is visited by Heavenly Network's head, who offers him to join the network, but he declines. This piqued Lu Shu's interest, and he decides to learn sword skills from Mr. Li, which he would always decline before. Lu Shu starts to learn the use of swords from Mr. Li, and as he used to be the best swordsman of his time, he enhanced Lu Shu's skills very quickly. Later, Mr. Li is visited by Xiaoyu, currently the best swordsman and one of the heads of Heaven Network. He asks Mr. Li to not let his foundation intervene while the network explores the ruins. Ruins are strange places that have started to appear since the emergence of superpowers and are said to be old homes to alien-like creatures. He adds that the offer to join network as a head is still open and leaves. Lu Shu conducts a personal grade test of himself and his sister since he has eaten lots of celestial fruits since the last test. Both beakers showed unusual results. Instead of displaying shades of black, it looked like their celestial maps. Still unsure, Lu Shu dumps the beakers and keeps it a secret from everyone else. Later that night, Liu Yixiao breaks through her first nebula layer while Lu Shu breaks through his second layer nebula. Liu Yixiao can recreate dead creatures as her puppets after they dissolve into the black hole. A fight breaks out among the 3 superpower users who turned into villains and men in black. Lu Shu and Liu Yixiao decided to go have a closer look at the fight. The villains were stronger than expected, even for D-rank power holders of the network. Unfortunately, Lu Shu had to intervene, or we could say that fate dragged him into this fight. He was forced to defeat 2 of the fighters from the network, as they thought of him as the 4th villain. Meanwhile, the muscular villain defeats all others from the network. Lu Shu takes him on, and as both of their punches collide, the sword emerges from Lu Shu's fist and kills the villain. He comes back to this place after a few hours and asks Liu Yixiao to swallow the tall villain if she could still sense the dead energy, which she did. Above level C, there were only 7 practitioners, so the leader of network sends a B-rank practitioner to look into it. Liu Yixiao accesses the memory of the tall villain and shares the spot with Lu Shu, where they hid the money after robbing the bank. However, Lu Shu denies to use the stolen money to fulfill their wish of owning a house. At school, all the students are gathered in the sports ground for welcome ceremony of the new director of this school. The new director is Li Yixiao, the B-rank practitioner from the network. After the ceremony, Li Yixiao takes the Dao Yuan class and advises students to inform him if they see a C-rank practitioner covered in protective shadow layer. That person is actually sitting in front of him, Lu Shu. Then he hands over the spirit stones to each student that would help them in progressing faster. As these stones are rare, Lu Shu finds a customer and sells his stones for a high price, enough that he could afford a house now. Meanwhile, Li Yixiao gives Mr. Li his medicine that network has been sending and informs about the appearance of a C-rank practitioner who knows how to use sword. Dao Yuan students are taken to a camp near a mountain where the ruin is expected to open. Many professionals from network are already there, and students only need to stay back and learn. Lu Shu practices by irritating the class leader and obtaining points for the next celestial fruit. When Liu Li had enough, he challenges Lu Shu to another arm wrestle and losing again. Zifi, the guy in black coat, also gets defeated by Lu Shu. Suddenly, a black smoke appears from the mountain. The ruin is opening and the smoke engulfs most of the students in black coat guys and scatter them into the ruins, which is filled with zombies. Lu Shu hands over the axe he obtained by killing one of the zombies to the unarmed students who were being chased. Lu Shu notices a red flare and he follows it to see one of the spies who is not from his school yet attending the camp in uniform. These spies were sent to obtain the Formation Eye. As soon as someone takes the Formation Eye, he gets immense power and the ruin disappears. Lu Shu stayed with the spy until he blew his cover. They got into a fight and Lu Shu was the better of both, so he kills him. Lu Shu then moves on until he was chased by the wolves back to the point where he started. This time he decides to move inwards, towards the center of ruin. Lu Shu gets an idea to make the most out of this experience. He starts to steal the weapons from zombies. He comes across a zombie cavalry and Lu Shu single-handedly defeats them and takes all their spears. Meanwhile, the group of D-rank blackcoats who had rescued a lot of students and were also trying to get rid of the cavalry met up with Lu Shu. Lu Shu sells them the weapons and joined them. As the group approached a cave, a lot of floating energy bodies appear to attack them. The sword inside of Lu Shu tries to escape, but he keeps it in. However, the energy ghosts sense that sword, get afraid and flee. They enter the cave and reach the center where all the other survivors had gathered. Lu Shu was not the only one who became a nightmare for zombies. Cao Qingci killed a lot as well. However, unlike Lu Shu, whatever weapon she would confiscate, she would give it away for free. Zhang, a C-rank practitioner, checks the depth of huge tunnel that goes down. Under the command of Li Yixiao, they decide to go into the cave next morning. However, the remaining spies try to enter the cave while everyone else is sleeping. Lu Shu seeing them and catches one of the spies. Li Yixiao decides to waste no more time before entering. As they enter the cave, the entrance automatically closes with a wall, and the energy bodies from before appear. One of the spies that died had also turned into a ghost. The door on the other side opens and a huge army of zombies enter. Li Yixiao takes on the commander while the rest was for others. Due to the sword in his chest, no ghost or zombie was approaching Lu Shu. He gets bored and angered, and decides to explore the houses behind the door where army came from. He finds a room with strong large guards with much advanced spears. Before they could attack, the sword or corpse dog comes out of his chest and commands the guards to stay away. Lu Shu takes all their spears and enters the next room where he finds a strange box. The chief of zombie army abandons his fight with Li Yixiao and tries to stop Lu Shu from opening that box. He was too late and Lu Shu coincidentally acquires the seal of river and mountain. As he touches this foundation eye, the whole ruin disappears. With that, Everyone goes home and Lu Shu explores the seal he got. This seal is a divine object that can observe the earth and control the aura. At the bottom of the seal, he sees a different dimension with a large door. With Lu Shu's current strength, he was unable to open the door. Meanwhile, the network still looks for the person who has acquired the formation I. With that, we see the words Season 2 in production. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Anime the Recap.